I'm here today with Reed of Osyron to talk about Momentous, out right now everywhere. You can go pick it up. It's available on all streaming devices, streaming platforms. And I want to start off by welcoming you to the channel. Thank you for taking the time. And how are things going with you now that the album is out?
Yeah, things are going really well. And first and foremost, thank you very much for having me on your channel. I've been listening and watching a lot of your reaction and reviews and stuff like that over the last couple of years. So it's a great honor to be here. And yeah, the record's been doing really well so far. It's only been out for, I guess, four days, I guess you could say. And so far the feedback's been fantastic. So we couldn't be happier.
Did you guys have any goals that you set for yourselves ahead of time with this release? And have you reached them if you had set them?
Yeah, I mean, I think with every artist's next release, you always want to one up the previous one. And I think that in regards to that specifically, we have. And then in regards to also just trying to become better songwriters and trying to really solidify and perfect our own sound and what we want to accomplish with what it makes Osyron. I think we did that as well. So I think across the board, things turned out probably better than we hoped. You know, especially dealing with some artists and some people that we got to work with on this record, and just the overall experience and so far the feedback, and I think the end product as well.
From the debut record to this record, what do you think, or what do you see as the biggest growth that the band has gone through?
Well, I'd say other than musicianship and just becoming better musicians, and you know that goes for everyone in the band. I think the maturity with how we're going about our business and how we're going about the recording process and how we're treating the business side of things. And then first and foremost, I think definitely the songwriting. I think that we've really just started to really hone our skills as songwriters and really perfect our sound. And I think that that's kind of where that growth is really started to mature. And it leaves me and the rest of the guys super excited for what's in the future and then the next records to come.
Is there something about this record that down the road, maybe now it's a little bit harder to see, but maybe down the road it'll be easy to identify this album as being this album because of this or because of that? Do you see anything specifically in it?
Yeah, I think it's our coming out party on a global aspect. I mean, we've had some fans around the world, and we've had some loyal listeners from various parts of the globe, but I think we're going to look back and say that this was definitely our launching pad, or like I said, our coming out party. I think that it was definitely where we've arrived on the global scene, and something that we can look back on and say, oh yeah, this is where they really started to run with it. You know, and we weren't necessarily doing laps or treading water. We were ready to go full steam ahead. So I think that this record's gonna, I hope, in the future we're going to look back and say that that's what it was.
How was the creative process? Has it changed over time? Was it specifically unique to this record? How was that experience?
Yeah, I think we were definitely a lot more cohesive and collaborative. I mean, I think that in years past, like what we would do is, you know, one person would bring kind of the bulk of the idea or the bulk of the song, and another person bring another song or another idea, and it was kind of we were more kind of bouncing off of that one idea from that one specific individual. And on this record, even though we had some of that throughout some of the songs, definitely a lot more cohesive and collaborative. Like one example I can think of is the title track, Momentous. It's like 12-13 minutes long, and that was really, I think, the first song where I'd be hard pressed not to say that we all put in an equal 1/5, or we all put in the equal amount of effort on that song in regards to songwriting choices, transitions, etc. So I definitely think that would be a big you know, component of that.
This album has great sound through and through. I honestly, I was expecting the overall experience to be a little bit more boxed in, maybe a little bit safer. Maybe that's the best word to describe it. But it didn't feel that way at all. It felt like you guys were like you know what, let's fucking do this and let's see where things land. And that ability to kind of not worry about what the end result is going to be comes across in the overall sound. Was that originally the idea from the beginning, or does the production behind the album also help give the record this sense of having room to breathe?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both those things. I know for one thing, like our bassist, Tyler Corbett, is a phenomenal mixing engineer, and he's done our last two records. I guess you can also include the remix remastered version of Kingsbane as well. So if you want to count both Kingsbanes and then Foundations and then this record, that's four. And he's, as a mixing engineer and as a from a production standpoint, it's just gotten better and better and better and better every single time. So I think that that's a reflection on that aspect of things, as well as we've just become a lot better at how we record ourselves, the choices we're making. We were able to record drums in a really awesome space called OCL Studio. So we had a lot of room. We had a lot of time to experiment and try new things. And then, yeah, I think we just said, fuck it, let's just go all in on this and give it 110%. And we need to sound bombastic, because our sound, us as individuals, I mean, we're a lot of goofballs and all that kind of shit, but our sound is supposed to be epic. It's supposed to be loud. It's supposed to be larger than life. So I think we finally figured out a way to translate that on record, because live, yeah, you're going to get that, like we're going to be able to convey that live. But on record, that's always the tough thing. And I think we really nailed it this go around. And I think it's going to translate into the subsequent records that follow.
You definitely did. I mean, like, if the album has that sense of not being boxed in, of just the sound travels really well. It doesn't thin out either, because sometimes you have these epic sounding records that feel like they get a little bit thinner because the sound kind of loses a little bit of its texture. You guys don't have that on the record. So it really stands out from that point of view. And then it takes me to my next question, which is when we got introduced, and I say we, my son and I got introduced to the band, we were told, it's a progressive metal band. I'm not a big progressive metal guy. And immediately I was a little bit like standoffish. Then we check out that single. And obviously since then I've had a chance to listen to the whole record. And while progressive, this is a little bit different than what perhaps the regular listener is expecting from a progressive sounding record, or maybe there's no expectations because progressive can really go anywhere. So the question that I have for you is, how do you define progressive, and what does that definition mean to the band?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it from maybe like a non-musical point of view. I mean, progressive is always changing and being open to new concepts and moving forward in a different light. So I think, I think for us, it's like we're also progressive in the sense that our sound has been progressive from record to record. I mean, you could also say that. I mean, maybe this record isn't, as progressive as like a Dream Theater or a Rush or a Hawken or all these other awesome prog bands. But then again, it's like all those bands sound different too. And I think that we have a hard time trying to identify as a specific genre or niche or whatever you want to call it. And because metal and metalheads are so analytical about what is what and who's what, and you're a tech, prog, melodic, death, happy jazz band or whatever the fuck you are, I don't know what it is, right? But for me, like, I don't know. I just think we're badass heavy metal. And, we have symphonic elements, we have progressive elements, we have power metal elements. So what do you want to call us? You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where I think prog is just an easier way to convey that we are not necessarily pigeonholed in one particular genre or direction. But I think you're going to expect, an Osyron sound every record, to be kind of cohesive and in a certain direction. And I could see that from record to record as we're really starting to solidify that. And I think that you get this symphonic power prog clusterfuck or whatever you want to call it, and that's what this record is.
It's about the quality, not necessarily about what are you going to call that quality.
Sure, yeah, exactly. And we just want to write what we hear in our heads, and we want people to move, we want people to have fun. That's what we want to do. We're not trying to convey necessarily doom and gloom, but we're not necessarily trying to convey happiness, go lucky, whatever. It's what we're feeling at the time, and just writing the best songs we can at that moment, and what comes out comes out, and this is what came out for Momentous.
What was the game plan vocally? We talked a lot about the sound. I want to talk a little bit more about the vocals. Did you have a vision board of what you wanted the vocals to be like on this record?
I have a vision board frickin' scrolling on repeat in my head all the time about what the vocals are going to always be on these records. I mean, I think the moment you stop pushing yourself and trying to expand and improve is the moment you either retire or you lay down and you go to sleep forever, I guess, with all, being as not as gloomy as I possibly can be. You know, and I've always had this dream and this vision of being the best vocalist that I could be, and be up there with some of the greats, because I want, that's my goal, is to chase that, and to be not held in the same regard per se, but to be respected, and just to hang out with those people. If I could be friends with all those people, then that'd be my dream, I think. Them and NHL players. If I could have awesome metal lead singers of yesterday and today, and then awesome NHL heroes and players from yesterday and today, then I'd be the happiest guy on the planet. But yeah, I think you know, especially having Stu on this record, Stu Block, an early influence of mine, and someone that I respect and admire greatly. That was a big moment for me, to push myself to make sure that I could at least get within the same realm and in the same world as Stu, because he is just one of the best ever. And so I think that this record is also a turning point for me creatively, and as a singer as well.
I don't think there's a Venn diagram where hockey players and metal singers cross paths with one another. I mean,
I'm that guy. I'm that Venn diagram.
It's just you.
It's just I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. Like that's it. Just read motherfucking Alton from Osyron. That's it.
Small Venn diagram with one person.
100%. Yeah, it's like two massive circles, and then there's just this tiny little overlap right in the middle, the little sliver, and that's me, and I'll own that. Unless someone else wants to join on in, I'll welcome whoever wants to join in on that. That'd be great.
You'll take them to the penalty box. You'll join them there. You mentioned Stu. Is there somebody else within the Canadian realm that you would love to perhaps work with on a future album?
Yeah, I got a few. I'd say Devin Townsend for sure, but I think I'd freak out. I'd freak out if I ever had that opportunity, because he's exceptional as well. And then Brittany Slays from Alicia Archers. She's got one hell of a voice and great range and control. Like, it's from like a technicality standpoint, you know, like because I teach vocals as well on the side, and just from a technicality standpoint, she's got incredible control and range. So I'd have to say Brittany as well.
Well, two greats, two legends, if you will, in their own time and in their own rights.
100%.
Now, when it comes to the lyrical content on the record, do the vocal melodies kind of dictate where you're going to go with the lyrics, or do you work the lyrics in order to fit those vocal melodies? How does it work?
Yeah, I'd say I can only speak from my perspective, because what I bring to the table with the band obviously is a lot of the vocal melodies, and on this record in particular, all the lyrics. But I'd say for me, lyrics always come last. For me, it's always like I'll hear the music, I'll hear where the band's going, we talk about it, we obviously try to understand where we're coming from. And then what I'll do is I'll come up with these melodies that I hear in my head. I'll go over them all the time. I'll start maybe mouthing or coming up with like scatting or bullshit, just to get like syllables and rhythms and whatever. And then from there, maybe it's the melodies, maybe it's the music itself, maybe it's something that's just happened recently or something that's happened, you know, a long time ago. But then the lyrical themes start to shape from that. And I think it's more of, I'm letting the lyrics try to convey the emotion or the feeling of the music, because as much as I admire people that can write lyrics first and then music, you know, like let's just say Elton John, who got lyrics and then he would write the music to lyrics. I don't know how I don't know how to do that. That's nuts. Like, I don't know how that works. Like, for me, my brain and how this band works, is definitely music first. We get the idea, we see the direction, the emotion, the feeling, the themes might start pouring in from there. There might be a story, there might be, we do a little bit of history, we do a lot of, a little bit of personal interpretations or personal introspective kind of themes. So I definitely say music first, melodies, and then lyrics would be after that.
When you look at what the band has done with this record, and we've talked about the growth of the band leading up to this album, does this album finally let you know who Osyron is, or that is yet still to be discovered with future records?
No, I'd say, I mean, that's a good question, Pedro. I'd definitely say that this record is kind of like us solidifying our direction. But as in regards to the end result or where that is, I mean, that's still yet to be written. So I'd say that if there was kind of trying to pave that path or trying to choose that road or that route, I think that this record has allowed us to kind of say, okay, yeah, this feels right. This feels like us. This feels like an Osyron record. This feels like, and this is the first record, I think, in the band's history. Bobby and Christoph could correct me if I'm wrong. But I guess I'm the one doing the interview, so fuck them, right? I guess
What do they know?
Yeah, what do they know? Exactly. They only started the band however many years ago, right? But I'd say that this is the first time where a lineup has now done more than one record. Like we've done Foundations with this lineup, and now we've done Momentous, and then I guess you can also say the bonus tracks to Kingsbane, the remixed, remastered version. But this band has been solid for about 5 years now, like a steady lineup, and it's really showing, because I think that also shows that camaraderie and that cohesiveness in regards to your art and to your music. So I think that that's also played a part into it.
I got one last question for you, and this is a very Canadian question.
Sure.
Being a band from Calgary, do you feel like you guys are forced to prove something that maybe you wouldn't have to prove if you were in a different market altogether?
100%. 100%. And I think that goes for not just Calgary, but I think that goes for a lot of Canada. I mean, I know that there's been different movements and scenes that have come out of Canada over the years, like out east with like death metal and stuff like that in the 90s. And, I know right now there's a huge movement of traditional heavy metal, like new wave of traditional heavy metal that's coming out of Alberta right now, like Riot City, Traveler, obviously the Mighty Striker. Like, it's not like Alberta doesn't have that. But I would say that because we're more, proggy, or I guess we can go back on that argument of what the hell we are. I think that we have to kind of fight a little harder and claw a little bit more tooth and nail to kind of bring ourselves to the forefront and say, hey, listen, like, metal is a global genre. It's influenced from around the world. It always has been. It's been influenced from all around the world, and it doesn't matter where you're from. I just think that us being in a city where, the arts haven't been as celebrated or as put to the forefront of as other cities, even in Canada, but around the world, I think that we just have that chip on our shoulder. It's like, we are good enough. We can do this, and we're out there to show our stuff and be loud. And I think that this record really shows that.
Yeah, I had to ask you that question because I've had this talk with Mauricio of Cataclysm about this kind of, breaking boundaries and opening doors. And I've always felt like that if you're, let's say, a hardcore band and you're from New York, more people would be like, oh, let me check that out. A hardcore band in New York, kind of makes sense. Let me check that out. Or if you're a thrash metal band from San Francisco, let me check that out. Like, but when you come out and you say, well, I'm from Alberta, I'm from Calgary, I'm from Vancouver, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, whatever, people will be like, what? So you almost have to be 1,000 times better than the next band just to get people's attention. I've always felt that way, but I think perhaps even more so now than before. That's why I wanted to ask your feedback, because you're in the trenches. You would know better than me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very astute of you, like an astute observation, and well warranted for sure, because I think you have some basis and some facts and some notable people to get that information from. And I would say that, I think nowadays we've got such a high standard, especially in like some genres and some subgenres, but perfection or being the best of the best really has to stand up. And especially in genres like metal, where yeah, the sound has gotten very produced on some subgenres, and some things have gotten really, micro produced and whatever. You got to be able to go out there and fucking kill it live. It's one of those genres where it's just like, if you suck live, or if you can't come out there and do it, you start falling. And so, in other genres, maybe not, like, I don't know, right? But I just say that there is some truth to that. I think that maybe we're just not held to the same respect, but there's just as many talented people here. There's just as many driven people, probably metalheads per capita, but we're just kind of hiding in our huts in the wintertime. You know what I mean? Like, we're just kind of, what I mean? But it's like
in the igloos for all the
in the igloos, yeah, for all your viewers, because you're based out of Canada, right? Like,
yeah, I'm in Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto, yeah, the epicenter of the world, but
I at the center of the universe.
Fuck, tell me about it, especially being out west here. Holy shit, it's just everything's about Toronto. But anyway, I would say that for all your listeners and viewers that are not Canadian or have never experienced the Canadian culture, or the country itself, definitely we are not held to the same respect, I think, generally. But man, I mean, if you go through some of the greatest Canadian metal players and musicians and singers, I mean, it's hard to argue, with like a shredder like Jeff Waters from Annihilator. I mean, one of the best of his genre ever. All the way to like thrash metal forefathers like Exciter, like Dan Beeler and that band, all the way to Devin Townsend, to Unleash the Archers, to Stu Block. I don't know. I mean, if you were to kind of line up everyone around the world, and you were to kind of put the best of the best of the best all around, I mean, Canucks, like, we're heavy, badass motherfuckers. And, we play hockey, and we drink beer and whiskey, and we write good heavy metal. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just people.
You know what I think what it comes down to? Canadians need better PR. That's what we need. Yeah. Because when you start naming those bands, and you can throw Rush into that mix, I mean, sure. You're right. We're up there with anybody else when it comes to top musicians. It's just that we don't get the same publicity. We don't publicize our own very well in the world. I think as Canadians, perhaps we're a little bit more always looking at what's better out there. Like, the lawn of the neighbor is greener than ours, and we don't spend enough time really taking care of our own. Like, we complain about ours, and we envy the neighbors instead of just really watering ours. And I think maybe that's what's lacking a little bit.
I think you have some truth to that, and I think you're on the right track. I mean, I would say too, it might be just the culture of Canadians. It's since I've been kind of in the scene, at least out here in Calgary and stuff, you have your dedicated scene. You have the people that come out to the scene support. You can always bring out to shows whenever you're promoting your shows, but it's not like other cities or places around the world. And I wonder if that's just a Canadian cultural thing, where we have other things that we gravitate ourselves towards in the masses, because if you have a Metallica or an Iron Maiden come through any city in Canada, it's fucking sold out and it's rowdy, and you look around and you go, where the hell did all these metalheads come from? I didn't even know they existed in this city, but they do. And I think with Canadian culture, we're a little bit more reserved, a little bit more the doors closed. We'll talk and debate, and we'll criticize, and we'll yell, and we'll spit, and we'll swear and whatever. But then when you come out in front, we're a little bit more, I don't want to necessarily be okay to express myself in maybe my music, versus maybe other places on the planet. But there's just as many per capita, I think, like metalheads and people that enjoy metal. But I have no issues being that very polite, cordial, respectable Canadian that comes out there and says, Canadians are fucking incredible, and we have amazing heavy metal, and some of the best bands of the next 20 years are coming out of this country. So I have no issues saying that. And if someone wants to tell me to go to hell, then I think go fuck themselves, I guess.
Well, great way to end this conversation, I must say. So, on that note, Reed, thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Best of luck with this release. I honestly, I really dig the record. It's a great album. You guys have a fun sound, a really cool sound as well. So this album definitely will open some doors for you guys, and hopefully you'll make it at some point in time to the center of the universe for a show here.
Well, if we make it all the way out there, I hope to see you at a show, and you and your son.
100%. You tell me if you're playing anywhere near here, I'm there.
100%. Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do in your channel and promoting heavy metal and promoting Canadian heavy metal, and I hope that you keep it up, and I'll be watching as always.
All right, and we'll be watching you. So
sounds great.
We got a deal. Take care, man. All the best.
Thanks, Pedro.